Please bear with the darkness of this video as I get to the point. No written nor expressed language could ever picture the field of Gettysburg. Blood, blood, and tattered flesh. Shattered bones and mangled forms almost without the resemblance of human beings. Faces torn and bruised and lacerated. Groans and cries, screams and curses. Moans and grinding teeth. The horrible silence of torture beyond all expression. Those weeks of sickening work, when the cut of the knife and the rasp of the saw grated on my overtaxed nerves. These were words that were written by an army surgeon who operated on some of the 27,000 wounded involved in the combat during the Battle of Gettysburg, which was fought near here on July 1st through the 3rd, 1863. Following the battle, nearly 10,000 Union and Confederate injured soldiers were concentrated into a vast network of military field hospitals set up by the U.S. Army of the Potomac. These field hospitals were located just a short walk from where I stand. 150 years ago, where I'm standing right now, was a dark field and barn, the A. Sheeley farm, off the Baltimore Pike. You would see darkness at this time of the night. The barn filled with bloody hay, and the screams and shrieks of wounded and dying soldiers that would be all spread across the outside in the damp ground, soaked by the recent rains after the battle. If you were lucky and you could make it into the barn, you'd have a makeshift bed of hay and straw riddled with bugs. After the last tents were struck and the barns cleaned up, the Sheeley farm returned to normal and stayed that way for about 135 years. And then about 20 years ago, mankind and his greed came by and destroyed this precious field and created this. I'm standing at the site of the current Gettysburg Village Outlet Mall, which is on the old A. Sheeley farm off of the Baltimore Pike. Today it's a vast network of stores such as Van Heusen and Wilson's Leather and GameStop and Claire's and Brooks Brothers and TGI Fridays and Bondworth's. Gone are the shrieks, gone are the pain and suffering, and today it's forgotten, filled with shopping and laughter. No one cries out, no one stopped this from happening. Development happened here in Gettysburg, and the only thing left is a small, simple sign of the U.S. Field Hospitals at Gettysburg. This is the sad reality and one of the sadder stories of Gettysburg. On the battlefield, men were instantly killed, often not feeling or not knowing what hit them. It was fields like this that had barns like this where men actually suffered for hours, for days, for weeks, and for months. Yet these places were not thought of as a place like Little Round Top or Big Round Top or the Devil's Den. They were often pushed aside and forgotten, and when the barns and land became too valuable, they were developed into what we see today, an outlet shopping mall here in Gettysburg. This has been the Secrets of Gettysburg series on the field hospitals at Gettysburg at the A. Sheeley farm off of the Baltimore Pike, today's site of the Gettysburg outlet malls. Directly in front of me is the Aaron Sheeley farm. I did a video earlier on the Aaron Sheeley farmstead where I stated that there was a outlet mall that was built. This is the Aaron Sheeley barn, which is the only thing that is left from the Aaron Sheeley farmstead. Just to the right of the barn there, beyond that hill, is the outlet mall. And then over here to the left is a modern day theater, movie theater, the Village Cinema. I am actually standing in the middle of sewage. And this sewage was actually a result of, in that direction, a runoff of the Lake Heritage community that was built, where they would dump their waste, which partly ruined White Run, and also ruined the Sheeley farmstead. Well, during the Civil War, the Provost Marshal of the Army was responsible for transportation of prisoners, hospital guards, wagon trains, and he kept law and order within the different regiments of the Army. Also, all the supplies from the wagon trains had to be guarded, and it was more of like a military. It was what we would consider the military police of the day. Now, General Patrick, who was the Provost Marshal of the Army of the Potomac, on July 2nd, he wrote in his diary that he had his hands full with the provost guards to keep the troops from breaking. And he came into the area and found every single barn and home occupied by different types of field hospitals. By July 4th, with almost every home and barn being occupied, he came into this area near White Run, and he had been drenched in the pouring rains that had happened on the 4th. And he came upon the Sheeley farm, and as he looked around, he realized this was the only unoccupied place left, probably in Gettysburg. He came up to the barn with an assistant, and he wrote in his diary that this was the only barn in the whole country not occupied by a field hospital. So he took shelter in this very barn and slept on the floor with his assistants around him. Now we're going to take a walk over to the barn, because this barn is in a total state of disrepair. It's abandoned, but it's going to give you the opportunity, and I'm going to take you inside of a Civil War barn and look around. It's going to give you a very rare opportunity here to see barns. Most of them are locked up and, padlocked. This one's open because of its state of disrepair. So you're going to be able to go in and see the foundation and, a hay floor, and see what it was like for a field hospital during the Civil War, and what it may have looked like other than operating tables and blood everywhere. So let's take a walk in here into the Aaron Sheeley barn. And as you can see, the wooden beam ceilings still with the bark on them. The rock walls, bales of hay. And that was on this floor right here where Provost Marshal Patrick stayed. And he wrote in his diary that he passed one of the more comfortable night sleeps that he had in a while. And, the shame about this barn is that, it is in such a state of disrepair that it doesn't appear that anyone will ever put any type of money into it to fix it. It also has a second floor above. I didn't want to take the wooden ladder because I don't know what type of shape that ladder's in. So we're going to walk around to the front of the barn, and you're going to see the wooden plank floors and such inside of this barn. And of course, as I stated earlier, most of the site was ruined by the building of the outlet mall and the Village Theater here about 15 years ago. And there's the theater there. And as we come up to the crest of the hill, you're going to see the Gettysburg Outlet Mall in the distance. All right, here we go. And then we go. And it does appear that teenagers come in here and graffiti the walls up pretty bad. And of course, you know, as with a lot of Civil War sites, nothing's really done about it. And it's a shame, because at one time you can tell this was a beautiful barn. And it's a witness to our history that is fading away as the years go by, as development encroaches upon it. Our history fades away, and once it's gone, you never get it back. So, you know, it's a shame that something like this would happen, but it has, and here's one perfect example of it. This has been the Aaron Sheeley barn at the former site of the Alan Sheeley farmstead here near White Run in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.